Today on Homeworthy, we're stepping inside the chic and stylish home of influential CEOs. Join us as we tour the impressive residence of Chelsea Fagan, CEO of the Financial Diet, Suzy Batiz, the creator of the innovative bathroom spray Poopouri, and Jeanine and Bryan Mason, the visionary CEOs behind the interior design company Afrochic. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Chelsea Fagan here in New York City, and tonight I'm gonna have a few friends over for a little aperitif, so come on in and help me set up. So one of my favorite things in my entire home, so this is the first home I've ever owned, which means it's the first time I've ever been able to do any kind of renovation. And one of the things I knew I wanted to do as soon as I bought this place was to build in a little bookshelf bar nook area for entertaining, obviously, but also for all of our books. And I had a really specific vision for what I wanted. And one of the things that was really important to me was a very whimsical and eye-catching and special wallpaper that kind of in and of itself looks like a piece of art, which I think this one does. It's heavily inspired by the wallpaper at the Carlisle Hotel Bar, Bemelman's Bar, done by very, very famous illustrator and writer Ludwig Bemelman. I actually have Bemelman's book, kind of a take on his time working in all of the really upscale fancy hotels here in New York City back in the 1920s. But he had just an incredible style. A lot of people know Bemelman's work from Madeline. And my father's actually an illustrator, as is my cousin. I have some of their work around too. So hand illustration has always been something that I really, really love. And so this wallpaper, although it is ludicrously expensive, for just one panel, I thought it was really worth the investment to sort of turn the bar nook into its own sort of living piece of artwork. One thing that I really love in my home, especially as it pertains to hosting and entertaining, are these highball glasses that I inherited from my grandmother. She was, in many ways, my icon, my idol. This is her watch. I wear it every single day. I have a lot of her stuff. Don't quite fit in a lot of them. She was much smaller than me, but she just had the most exquisite taste. She was an excellent painter. She always wore the most glamorous outfits, always perfectly coiffed, had the most incredible home style. She just was a woman that had so much to offer creatively. And I always think about her when I am sort of engaging in any kind of domestic creativity, because it really reminds me that for whole generations of women, the home and what we do with our homes was really one of the few areas that they had to express themselves and to sort of enact their vision. So my grandmother's highball glasses here, I very rarely break them out because if something were to happen to one of them, I could never forgive myself. But we do use them for very special occasions, and I have a lot of little pieces of hers throughout the house that, I don't know, they always just feel incredibly special and like a little homage to her every time I use them. One thing with setting the space too, when you're hosting, no matter the kind of space you're hosting in, is to really know the little touches that are worth investing in versus not necessarily worth investing in. One thing that I think always makes a huge difference is having fabric napkins. I love these little fabric cocktail napkins. They're from a brand called Cheffany. These were actually a gift from a friend, but those kinds of little touches are really the things that often make a huge difference when you're hosting. They feel really special, they make a big impact, but are usually not much more expensive and are also just better for the environment because you're not constantly throwing things away. In terms of setting up your space, I think one thing that a lot of people tend to think and put pressure on themselves for is that things need to be expensive or fancy in your home. I cannot stress enough, as someone who has always been pretty budget conscious, I've definitely had a lot of financial issues in my life, and am someone who doesn't feel comfortable spending a huge amount of money on things, especially if I'm not sure that I'll have them forever. I have almost literally no furniture or home decor items that I ever paid full price for, or that I got somewhere very expensive and fancy and designer. A lot of the items come from Facebook Marketplace, online auctions, flea markets, thrift stores, secondhand, literally found on the street. And that's kind of the secret with home decor, is that things like art and furniture almost never ever need to be paid full price for, because it's something that in general, if it's a high quality piece, is meant to last for years and years, decades on decades, and you can easily find often higher quality materials and better constructed pieces for a fraction of the price of new stuff, just by being a little bit more patient. Another thing that a lot of people don't necessarily know, but I like to take advantage of, is if you are buying a more expensive piece, like this dining table I have, which is actually Jonathan Adler. It's mahogany and the base is ebonized wood with brass bearings. It's a really, really nice, well-constructed table. And I actually bought it for 60% off because I got it as a floor model. A lot of people don't know that in furniture boutiques and higher end stores, or even really any store, but I use it for higher end stores, you can just go in and buy the stuff that's been sitting on the floor. It will sometimes have like a few nicks or scratches, but you can often get it for 50 or more % off just because it's already been sitting on the floor. And I actually got it for 60% off, including delivery, which as someone without a car is enormous. So one thing that I really, really love in my apartment, so my debut romance novel, which is actually about a woman who turns old dilapidated chateaus in France into hotels, which is a job that I would very much like to have. For the book, I wanted to work with some female artists and creatives that I really loved, and one thing I really wanted was an original oil painting for the cover of the book. So I actually reached out to an oil painter based up in Canada, Elizabeth Lenny, whose work I absolutely love, and I asked her if she would be interested in doing that commission. And not only did she do the commission for the novel, and it is in my opinion one of the most beautiful romance novel covers I've ever seen, but she also was kind enough to gift me the original painting. So this definitely has one of the most important little places of prominence in my apartment, and I just love looking at it every day. It's a piece I never get tired of. One of the reasons I feel like people don't host as much as they could or maybe should is because they feel like they don't have a space that's good for hosting. Now, every time I talk about my apartment online, it causes a flurry of debate because by some standards, I have a very small apartment with a very small kitchen, especially compared to like the average home size in America. But for a lot of New Yorkers, including some apartments that I formerly lived in, I do have a lot of space. But the point is, I have a smaller space than many. I think my home is like 825 square feet, and I host all the time. I literally had a 16-person sit-down birthday dinner party for my husband in this very dining room. And that's obviously kind of an extreme example, but I do think that a lot more homes could be hosting ready than people actually think. Another big thing for having people over is lighting. Now, I have been in some beautiful spaces that were lit like a dentist's office for an evening dinner party, which was really unfortunate because, you know, people don't always feel their most comfortable when there's really harsh overhead lighting. I think we've all had some pretty negative experiences in certain, in certain mall dressing rooms where we just don't like the way that we look. We don't feel very comfortable. We don't feel relaxed. We don't feel beautiful. So creating diffused, warmer lighting is really important. A couple notes on that. One, in general, you want to, if you have a big overhead light, either turn it off or dim it. And you don't need a dimmer switch in order to dim lights. You can literally just get smart light bulbs that you can dim from your phone. That's what I have in all of my lighting. And I would say, generally speaking, you want to have at least a few different sources of light that come from different angles. So like table lamps, wall lamps, sconces, those kinds of things, so that people aren't just getting shone down upon. Another easy thing that I feel like is probably said a lot but can always be repeated is candles. I love having candles lit when people come over. I love a tapered candle. I love a pillar candle. I love all kinds of candles. It definitely also helps with creating flattering lighting. But do be careful about scented candles, especially when you're serving food. First of all, it can kind of conflict with the taste of the food, but also sometimes scented candles can be difficult for people's allergies, etc. So definitely try to have a few very neutral, unscented, maybe beeswax candles, things that you can light for the vibe, but don't necessarily change people's experience. Another little item that I really love, just because it's so cute and sweet and not something I necessarily would have bought for myself, but has such meaning to me, is this little bell that one of my oldest friends and her husband got for me after I threw a big dinner party for my husband, and I'm personally a little prone to giving a toast. I get, a little emotional when I'm having a lot of people I love over, and I love to, say a few words. And so I definitely was tinking my fork to my glass a few times, and my friend noticed, and she and her husband were like, she's gonna ruin her beautiful glasses. We have to get her a little bell. So now when I'm having a more formal gathering, I can just sort of ring the bell if I need to get people's attention, like call them to the table for dinner or, whatever it may be. And it has served me well. And I think it's just such a beautiful little object. It's a little brass pear. So as you can probably see in my home, I really love art. I am not myself super artistically inclined. I mean, I can sketch a little bit, and I do some more traditional art stuff, not very much, but a lot of my family are artists. My father is an illustrator his whole life, and my cousin is actually an illustrator. This is a piece that she did for me a few years ago. She's actually going to be illustrating a book that I have coming out next year that's actually about hosting. So I love getting to have a piece from her on my wall. But pretty much all of the art that you see, with almost no exception, I think, are all flea market, secondhand. I buy some stuff from museum gift shops when I like it. But for the most part, I've never really paid hardly any money for the art that I have, including, I have several actual oil paintings on here, but, I get them in random flea markets and thrift stores, and it's really just sort of about the art that speaks to me. But I also love having little pieces. Like I said, I'll get something from a museum gift shop, and some people I think can be pretty snobby about, don't have reproductions or don't have, prints or don't buy things off Etsy. And I really hate thinking that way, because ultimately I think you should have the art that makes you feel good and that you love to look at every day. And you should also know that they're not necessarily permanent things. You can have a framed concert poster that you liked or something that you found online. And if you get tired of it after a while, you can swap it out and maybe swap it back later. I also just love this lamp for no other reason than, it's actually from the 50s. I got it in an antique store upstate, but that is always just a very entertaining thing to be able to do when people are over. Another quick thing when you are setting up your space to have people over is flowers. Now, I personally am not super great at putting together floral arrangements. Like, I have my moments, but in general, I don't invest that much money. I always buy my florals from the grocery store. And one thing that I feel like is not necessarily like a tip or a hack, but it's something I live by, is that if you are not particularly good at floral arranging, you don't want to spend a lot of money on it, but you want something with a really big impact, just a bunch of hydrangeas. This is literally $22 worth of hydrangeas that I bought at the grocery store. All you have to do is just cut the stems and put them in water. And to me, they look very, first of all, to me, hydrangeas are always very Ina Garden coated, but also they just look impressive and done without really needing to do anything. One thing with hydrangeas though, and I have learned this the hard way from having many sad wilted hydrangeas, is that in order to keep them from like wilting and shriveling, you need to cut them on an angle, put them into hot water for like 30 seconds, and then put them into cool water. And then they will stay beautiful and fluffy forever. Not forever, but Another art thing, so this big pink sort of goldy green piece that I have in my entryway, which which is one of my favorite pieces that I own and always kind of makes a big statement when people come into my apartment, is actually Facebook Marketplace. A lot of my bigger, more substantial pieces I got off of Facebook Marketplace. Now, I'm not going to say that it was, $50. It was still several $100s, but compared to what I would have paid buying this from a gallery or a fancy antique shop here in Manhattan, it's night and day. So I cannot stress this enough, especially if you live in a bigger city, urban metro area, what have you. Use Facebook Marketplace. It is truly life-changing. So the aperitif is basically a cocktail hour, although it really does not have to entail actual cocktails, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But basically it is just sort of that pre-dinner magic hour moment where you're gathering around some easy, simple foods and just having a glass of something with people you love. One of the reasons I really love it so much and encourage people to start embracing it in their own home is because it's a really perfect way to host more if you are not particularly into or good at cooking yet. I do love to cook, and there are times when I make elaborate dinner parties, but there are also a lot of times when I just really cannot be bothered and I'm not super interested in the actual cooking part of things. I just want to have people over and have a nice time with them. And the good thing about the aperitif is that you literally don't even need to cook anything if you don't want to. So my husband and I usually spend a lot of every summer with his family and our friends over in France. And when we're at my in-laws' house every single night around dusk, first of all, they eat way later in France, which my people, that is one thing I have to give it up to them for. I think I was destined to live in Spain or something, because I like a 9:30 p.m. dinner. But over there, the sun doesn't set in the summer until 10 p.m. So around 7:30 is when you'll do the aperitif. And my mother-in-law is not only not that interested in cooking, she's also perpetually running late. She was famously late to her own wedding and is often walking in the door from being out windsurfing or on the beach, minutes before people are arriving. And it is a core memory of mine, just her in the kitchen, throwing a few things together, opening a few bottles, and magically preparing everything minutes before the friends arrive. And so I really think having that sort of casual, sometimes even last minute aspect to it is what I think makes it such a great entry point to hosting. So one thing about the aperitif that is crucial is that it not be a lot of work. One of the biggest mistakes people make while hosting, and I say people meaning I've done this a million times myself, is create so much work for yourself that you are not able to actually enjoy your party. This is very common when you have people over for dinner, especially if you're doing something that involves a lot of cooking right before people arrive or right before they eat. And yes, sometimes you can splash out, do really big fancy recipes for, a very impressive dinner party, but the whole concept of the aperitif, especially in French culture, is that it is extremely low effort, it's very casual, no cooking is necessary, and it's really just about enjoying each other's company. So oftentimes when I have people over for a quick aperitif, the cooking consists of me just opening packages. Today though, I'm going to assemble a few things just to give you an idea of the kinds of things I like to make when I have a little bit more time, I'm not just coming home from work. And the concept with these is that they are extremely low effort and easy, but extremely sort of high reward. So I'm gonna be assembling a little cheese and charcuterie board. Listen, it's very impressive. People love to walk in and see a board, but it's literally just putting things on a plate. I'm gonna be doing my cacio e pepe fried olives. I have found personally that when you put cacio e pepe in front of basically anything, people go crazy, and fried olives are one of my favorite dishes. I know olives can be polarizing, but for those of us that love them, fried olives are genuinely a revelation because they take basically no work and are so impressive. I'm just doing some little charred romaine lettuce hearts with a little lazy girl aioli that I'm making. Putting a little char on your vegetables, especially in the summer months, is just such an essentially no effort way to make it feel a little elevated and like you're eating it at a restaurant. So we're gonna go ahead and make that stuff. So the first thing we're gonna start by making is our fried olives. So in general, whenever I fry anything, I always do the breading beforehand, oftentimes the night before, for no other reason than I hate breading things. It's very time consuming, it's kind of messy, and it's usually not something I have time for right before people walk in the door. So in this case, I breaded these olives this morning. Basically, all you do is you drain your olives, you pat them a little bit dry, make sure there's not a ton of olive brine left on them, dredge them in a little bit of flour, put them in a little bit of an egg wash, and then roll them in the breadcrumbs of your choice. I usually like to do panko, but you can do whatever you have on hand. And this method works for fried olives, for my beloved fried pickles, fried pickled okra, literally any kind of pickled or brined little vegetable you want. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're making fried olives or pickles or things like that, do not season the flour or the breadcrumbs. I know this is very difficult for those of us who like our food well seasoned, but olives are incredibly salty. So although we're putting a little bit of cheese on them at the end, which is also a bit salty, we generally want to avoid adding salt. So now that these are fully breaded, literally all we have to do is heat up some oil and then fry them off. So all I'm doing is just adding enough oil to coat at the bottom of my Dutch oven. Any heavy bottomed pot will do. I'm going to put that to a medium-high heat, and all we have to do is let it get hot. So while the oil is heating up for my olives, I'm going to char my romaine lettuce. And literally, what does that mean? Just basically burning it a little bit. I basically just heat up a cast iron skillet, and you just put your little lettuce down or whatever vegetables you're charring, and then just let them get a little bit blackish brown around the edges, and that's it. So while we're charring off the lettuce, we are going to make what I sort of half-jokingly refer to as my lazy girl aioli. Aioli is also something that we eat a ton of in France. There are different sort of regional cuisines, but where my husband's family is from in the Southwest, they eat a lot of aioli. And what I'm going to make is not technically an aioli, because an aioli is not just garlic and mayonnaise. And please, chefs, do not come for me. I know what I'm making is not actually an aioli, but again, the point of the aperitif is that this stuff is very quick and easy and something that you can make in a matter of minutes. And so I am using my little cheat code. So literally all I'm gonna do here is just scoop a little bit of mayonnaise into my preferred vessel. Maybe a little more. I like Sir Kensington's. I know some people are big on, they have a lot of loyalty to like Duke's mayonnaise. That's good too, but I also like Sir Kensington's. So then I'm just gonna take my lemon, slice it here, squeeze a little bit of lemon juice onto it, squeezing it through my fingers so I can catch any seeds. I like a very lemony aioli, especially in summer. Then we're just gonna take a clove of garlic. We're gonna smash it here so that we can easily peel off the skin. Then literally all we're gonna do is just microplane our garlic. So we have our garlic and our lemon juice, and then I just do a little bit of salt. All of this is to taste. I only used 1.5 cloves of garlic. You can use a lot more. It's completely dependent on how much you want. But you just mix those 3 things together and you have quote unquote lazy girl aioli. So here we have our little charred romaine leaves and lazy girl aioli, something that took approximately 45 seconds, but feels incredibly impressive. So now we're just frying off our olives in some hot oil, and to make them cacio e pepe, I'm just going to microplane some pecorino and crack some pepper onto them. So on every batch, I just microplane a little bit of pecorino and crack a little bit of pepper. So 2 things with the kind of olives you'll want to use here. Number 1, make sure they're pitted, because no one wants to pop a piece of fried food in their mouth and accidentally break a tooth. And number 2 is I usually like to use a Castelvetrano olive because they're a little bit milder. They have a nice nutty flavor, not too overpowering, but use any olives you like. So now I'm going to set up my little cheese and charcuterie board, and I have to say, whoever invented these is truly a god, because there is literally no easier thing to do that feels more impressive and exciting to walk in and see. I don't have a ton of rules for my cheese boards, and I am always using different ingredients because I just sort of use whatever I happen to have on hand. But 2 things that I think always make it a little bit more impressive is utilizing all of the space on your board or plate, not leaving gaps in between things. And one secret to that is like put your crackers or bread also on the platter so that it takes up more space. And I always like to garnish with like a little bit of fresh herbs or something because it makes it feel finished. So I generally start my cheese boards by placing my cheeses And you'll notice here that these are not new cheeses, they are used, some of them, in part because, like I said, the point of a cheese board is to use the things you have. Sometimes I feel fancy and I pre-cut a few slices from each block, but I'm too lazy to do that. So then essentially with everything that is not a block of cheese, I just start arranging it. And I'll usually do little clusters of different things. Cheese boards are an entirely vibes-based art form, so just do whatever feels good. If you look at your cheese board like a bouquet, and why would you? But if you are, my favorite filler flower is fruit. I love fresh fruit on a cheese board, not only because it's extremely cheap and I usually have some on hand, but it's also nice and light and refreshing compared to things like heavy cheeses and charcuterie. So today I'm gonna put on some apple slices, and I always put a little lemon juice on my apple slices to keep them from going brown, as well as some raspberries. I never like to be too symmetrical with my cheese boards. I always like to sort of make them a little abstract, if you will. Normally I would also put olives on my cheese board, but as we are having fried olives, I won't be doing that today, but I do have some cornichons. How French. I actually find raspberries to be a bit of a textural nightmare personally, but I know other people love them, so I like to include them. Another really good filler is nuts. Here I'm doing some raw almonds, but you can do whatever kind of nut you like, and they're great for just filling in space. Then, like I said, I also like to arrange the crackers on the plate when I have space, just to fill it and make it look really bountiful and beautiful. Of course, I always give it a little fresh garnish. You'll notice that my plates and glasses and some other things are going to be a little mismatched today, but again, that's the point of the aperitif. I'm not going to waste time worrying about cleaning things if I don't have a full set all clean at the same time. I'm just going to use what I have. I always prefer to set up a drink station. I usually have a few options, including a signature drink, which I generally make something that you can either choose to spike or have it virgin, as well as another one or two options. And then I just set them out so people can serve themselves. That means they can have whatever they want without declaring their preference, and also means you get to enjoy your party rather than acting as your own bartender. Also, on the tip of, good art coming from anywhere, I get more compliments on this piece in my kitchen than almost anything else in my home, and I literally bought it for $4 on Etsy and printed it out at a local UPS. So the first part of setting up my drink station is just clearing off this little credenza here. It's a really nice location for a drink station because it's between my kitchen and the dining room, and it's perfectly accessible for everyone. So I put out my glasses. You may notice that these are slightly mismatched glasses because I don't have a full set clean right now of 6 / unbroken. But that's, again, the whole point of the aperitif. I have a little bowl of ice. Then I'm going to set up the actual drink ingredients. Now, the base that I made for the drinks is a fresh ruby red grapefruit juice with some homemade rosemary simple syrup. So that's the base of the drink. If you want to make it a cocktail, you can add a little bit of Campari and gin, and then both the cocktail and mocktail versions will be topped with sparkling water to make it kind of a spritz situation. I'm also going to put out a skin contact wine in case anyone would prefer that over a spritz. One thing I always do for my drink stations is make a little garnish station so that people can also garnish their own drinks and make them feel special. For this one, I am doing fresh rosemary and some grapefruit slices because those are 2 things in the drink. now I'm just gonna put out a few cocktail napkins. And I always recommend fanning out your cocktail napkins. It just feels so much more special. And that's my drink station. Now let's make a cocktail. So I'm going to make the cocktail version of my signature drink for the evening, and that's going to be Campari, gin, the rosemary grapefruit juice, and some sparkling water. She's a bitter queen. So we just have a tiny bit of Campari here at the bottom, and you're generally going to do about 1 part Campari to 2 parts gin. And then we're going to add as much grapefruit juice with the rosemary simple syrup as we like. I do roughly an equal part juice to as much of the Campari and gin as I've already added. Then we are going to top with sparkling water to make her a spritz. Then we're just going to give her a quick stir and we'll garnish. And there she is. But setting it up this way means that people can make it however they like, and they can choose to spike or not to spike, or maybe even have some of that skin contact wine, whatever you prefer. And we're just in time. My friends are about to get here. So here we have a full aperitif. Now, I chose to do a little bit more than just opening things up today, but trust me that I have thrown many aperitifs that involved opening a bag of chips and putting a bottle of wine on the drink cart. Ultimately, you should make it whatever feels right to you, but the whole point of the aperitif is that you don't need to have some big fancy dinner party in order to have people over. Like I said, my friends and I are actually going to dinner at a local restaurant after we enjoy this, so there is very little pressure on me and almost nothing to clean up. And because people are serving themselves their food, drinks, and water, it means I can just enjoy the party and not have to worry about taking care of everyone. Thank you for joining me in my New York City apartment for a somewhat French-inspired aperitif. It's been really fun, but I think I hear my friends, so I'll let you guys go. Bye.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Suzy. Welcome to my church home. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi, I'm Suzy Batiz. I am the Chief Executive and Visionary Officer for Poopouri Supernatural and my personal development course, Alive OS. Right now, we're in Dallas, Texas, and we're in my home. It's my church home. I live in an old church. I live in a 120-year-old St. John's Methodist church. So I ended up living in a church. My daughter was dating someone that had grown up in a little small white church in upstate New York. And I started looking for churches online. I really thought I was going to buy a little tiny white church out in the country that I would have as a second home, or like a little weekend home. And I saw this particular church online. It was way above my budget at the time, so I let that dream, go away. A few years later, I was getting my hair done, and there was so much synchronicity. My hairdresser at the time said, I'm going to go help someone move, and they happened to be living in a church they're trying to sell. And I go, that's so weird. I wanted to buy a church. And she showed me this was the same church I had seen 3 years before. And the minute I walked in, I can say I heard angels singing. It was this 100% resonant yes in my body. It was not in great shape. And my realtor at the time told me she didn't even want to write the contract. She said, this is a bad investment. It's in a not great neighborhood. You're a single woman. I don't want you to buy this church. And I said, I'm buying the church. Either you sign the contract, give me the contract, or I'm gonna go with another realtor. So it's really funny that even though I had this internal impulse, regardless of what outside people were telling me, there was just something I felt in my bones that this was not only my home, but it was also a place for me to have community and gatherings, and that it's more of a work-live space than just me living here. It didn't look great when I first bought it. I could see one of my blessings, I think one of my gifts, and also one of my curses is that I can see potential. I think I've dated too many people on potential. But sometimes that potential actually works out. In this case, it did. You know, there were, for example, every time it rained, we would have to get buckets and big plastic tarps and funnel all the water because this place was like a colander. There was water everywhere. These stained glass windows that you see were just riddled with holes. It looked like a machine gun had done. It was actually hail damage from a couple storms that the previous owner never fixed. There were holes in the floor. Just so much was in what people see disarray, but I didn't see any of that. All I saw was this incredible structure. I felt the energy of it. So I looked beyond all of that, because really those are just cosmetic things, that can be fixed. It did take several years. A lot of people ask me when touring the home, like, how long did it take you to remodel the home? And I often say, you should ask the church how long it took to remodel me, because I was being transformed inside. I had just gone through a divorce. I was going through a divorce. My children were grown. I was facing empty nests. So I was at a place in my life where I was being transformed internally at the same time as I was transforming this home. So we had this symbiotic relationship going on. It was a very special time in my life. I get a little teary always remembering that time. Welcome to the entry of my home. This is pretty much the way it was. The walls are all original, the stained glass is original. I did find these chairs right here in the attic, which I loved, so they haven't ever been refinished or anything, so I kept them. I often say that they didn't leave me a lot in the home. Whenever I bought it, they had taken a lot out, but I used whatever I have. Someone had told me that should be the title of my book, is I took what I had left and built this, right? I did leave, these were on the walls. It's some memories of some of the past people that were in the congregation, which I felt was very sweet, even though some spiritual worker came in and told me that was negative energy in the home. I'm like, well, I don't see it as negative energy. I see it very positive, that people were very grateful of people that contributed to the space. And there are actually 2 entrances to the church, but this is what I use as my main entry. And now I'll take you into the sanctuary/living room. So this is my living room that was formerly the sanctuary of the church. The ceilings are, I think, at the peak around 33 feet tall. The amazing thing is, while the space feels really large, once you're in it, it actually can feel very warm at the same time, which I take great pride in that. And these are original stained glass windows, mostly original. I did have them repaired because of damage, as I said earlier, this repair took about 2 years because it's done very meticulously by hand. Everyone I had working on the exterior of the church were historic approved tradesmen or craftsmen that were able, or craftswomen actually, did a lot of the stained glass. So I went to great extents to try to replace the stained glass to as close to original as I could, even though they didn't make exactly this type of stained glass any longer. The walls are all original, brick walls. I did whitewash them, and all of the wood that you see, these floors, are 120-year-old soft pine. They dent very easily. There's still little heel marks in them, which I left. I did have them refurbished. But what's amazing about the floors is they're not hardwoods. The church didn't have the money to purchase hardwoods, and I didn't have the heart to cover up the soft pine. So I just had them refinished and live with the beautiful soft pine that they also lived with. It was funny, when I first moved into the church, I kept telling my assistant I wanted a swing in the living room, and it took her about 2 years, and finally I said, hey, what is happening with the swing that I want in the living room? She's like, you're serious? And I was like, yes. I have this great ceiling, I have this amazing space, why don't we have a swing? So I worked with some local metalsmiths that came in, and they actually built this swing, and I had structural engineers come in. It can hold up to 2,000 pounds, even though we didn't quite need that, but there have been lots of kids rumbling on it and things. And I spent a lot of hours on this during my divorce, just swinging back and forth. So it's normally a focal point when people come in. They immediately want to take a picture on the swing, get on the swing. And my great niece, she was 10 from Arkansas when she came in and saw it. She said, "Aunt Suzy, everyone needs a swing in their living room." And I just love that. I said, they do. So, and I have had some friends that have put swings in even like a 10-foot ceiling. You know, it's nice just to be lifted off of the ground sometimes. So the way this all began with Poopouri is 17 years ago, I was at a dinner party in a small house with one bathroom. And it was a family gathering, and we were talking about bathroom odor. And we wondered how it could be stopped. And one of my family members said, "I wonder if you can trap bathroom odor." And immediately I had this vision that oil floats on water. I was a closet hippie that always played with essential oils. So I was like, I can do that. It took me 9 months of mixing and investigating and studying different oils, but 9 months later, I created Poopouri. I harassed all of my friends and family the entire time, you know, asking them, "Do you got to go to the bathroom?" You know, because I needed test subjects. And one day, my husband at the time walked out of the bathroom and he was holding the bottle and he says, "We're going to be millionaires." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Do you realize what you've done? You've taken the smell out of poop." And of course, that was the beginning of where I knew, because of my failed entrepreneur attempts in the past, I didn't really want to be in business, but the product was so good, I knew it had to come to market. I've sold over 150 million bottles. So while I knew this was game-changing and something that the world needed, especially women, you know, I did not expect it to ever be this large. And every day I'm grateful, and it just keeps growing larger and larger and larger, beyond my wildest expectations. So this is what I live in as my living room, living space. I built a nice little center here where you can just kind of commune. The fireplace was put in by a previous owner that had started remodeling the church a little bit before I bought it. It has to be a gas fireplace because, you know, you don't want to take a flue all the way up, a chimney all the way up, even though I love real wood much better. And then if you face here, this is the kitchen. And the kitchen is the old altar to the church. This is all original. This is original to the church. The balcony's original, the little stairway's original, but I actually went in and put a kitchen in this area. First time when I bought this church, I was so overwhelmed the first shipment of furniture that I got in, because I really had spent a lot of money to me at the time. And the furniture arrived and it fit this little tiny spot right here in the middle of the sanctuary. And I cried actually for 2 days. And I thought, oh my God, how am I ever going to furnish this space? And then once I came to, what I realized is that it didn't have to be furnished all in one moment, that this could be a gradual process, room by room. And that's the way I took it. You know, it's 15,000 square feet, so just to think, bam, here's all the furnishing is pretty impossible for anyone. So I would just take it room by room and start purchasing as I could. And because, you know, I had several designers that I interviewed whenever I was with the church. I decided not going with a professional interior designer, because they would say words like, "This would look good in here," and "this would look good." And I said, I don't want anything that looks good. I want something that feels good, that I love, right? So I ended up working with a graphic designer that worked at my company, and she had great taste. She did events, and I said, "Hey, would you help me, you know, with some furniture?" So we furnished it together. So every single thing in the house, down to my forks that I have had hand metal etched with words in them, I've chosen and I've picked out, down to the spatulas. So every single thing I love. And, you know, being a wife and a mother for most of my life prior to this, everything was about the children and my family. And this was the first time that I got to say, like, this is mine, and I get to choose exactly what I want. This is a living space, and One of my favorite things about this space is I love the rug. This was the first big purchase that I made ever in my adult life. And it's silk and it was very expensive. And it was something that literally was a moment of me having to feel worthy inside of, number one, it felt very wasteful for me to spend so much on something, right, that I loved. So I had a whole inner process of going in and going like, not only do I deserve it, I can afford it, and I should have nice things in my home. So this rug will be in my life for the rest of my life because it was that moment of transition for me and feeling really deserving and worthy. And another thing is, I love these tables. They're actually old English wash tubs that were turned upside down and etched out and cut. They're very heavy. But I love them. I also am not meticulous. I love lived-in spaces. So you'll not find anything in this house that is too precious to put a cup down on or, to actually live in. I can't stand when you go in those places and you feel like you can't set anything down or like you're going to hurt something. So I, on purpose, wanted this to feel very lived in and that you could be welcome here and feel at home. So the piece of art over a fireplace is a piece I had commissioned by an artist out of Kauai. I just loved her artwork. It was very bright and felt lively. Again, this whole thing you're going to find out is this is about a new period in my life, where I'm having a kind of a second life in my midlife. And I just loved her work. It was very bright and colorful, and it felt like where I was within my own process of my own journey as a woman. So the home right now has, I believe, 10 bedrooms. It has 13 and a half baths. It's a lot. I often wonder about that. It's like, wow, I don't really particularly need that many. And what is nice is you'll see I've turned lots of them into multi-use spaces. For example, one of the old bedrooms I have as a closet. Another one I've turned into a sauna room. Another one I have a paint room. One of them I have as a little small office for an assistant or for someone that's here. So I've also repurposed some of the bedrooms and some of the rooms that were here whenever I bought it. And it's nice if I want to have an event, which I'm going to have an event, a Live OS here in May, and I can also house a lot of people. So when they all have kind of private bathrooms, so that's nice as well. Knowing that it's not just a space for me to live in, it's a live workspace, it has come in handy. Yeah, one thing I would like to note about this space is the lights above. These were supposedly the first pendant lights in Dallas. They're really amazing. I put them on winches so that they could be lowered and raised so that we could clean them. But they're really incredible. Whenever I bought the church, they were much lower because they were for a church, and I raised them up. Over here's the dining area. Again, as you knew that this isn't just a private space for me, it was a space for me to have multiple people in and gatherings. So I have a table that seats 14 people. I wanted it to feel still homey, yet have a place that's grand enough to entertain a lot. What's interesting, the chairs, like these chairs are a couple hundred years old, and they were out of an old castle in France. So I just found all of these old pieces, and these are actually just more of a modern chair, believe it or not, and I had one of my friends that's an amazing faux finisher match them. So each one of them have silk cushions. Again, it's all about comfort. These were some interior doors that were they were on the inside of the entry, and I didn't know what to do with them because I didn't need them. So I ended up having them cut out and put here and made into a big china cabinet. As I said, they didn't leave me a lot, but what they left me, I used completely. I wish they would have left me more. And now we'll go into the kitchen, which used to be the altar of the church. It's a really grand space. I love the idea of my food being cooked in what used to be an altar, right? It feels very sacred. Again, I love home, I love family, I love sharing, I love cooking. So having a space that's big enough that people can sit around while I'm over here cooking a meal feels very resonant with me in my life. And I just chose it to be really white and bright. I felt like that brought the energy of the church. You know, we think of churches as these holy places. One thing I will tell you, design-wise, that I love about this space, I love the elevation, I love that it's a special space, but also this piece that I had etched out of metal. This was a poem that my daughter called me one day and she said, "Mom, if you were a poem, this is you." I asked her to write the poem out, and I actually gave it to my graphic designer, and she designed this, and we had it etched out of metal and backlit. So you'll find throughout the house I have lots of pieces and things that aren't particularly beautiful to other people, but that are really special and precious to me. Yeah, so you'll see in the house I have lots of trees and flowers and plants, and even, you know, if anybody's, you can Google my story online and hear a lot about it. Most of my life I didn't have very much money, but fresh flowers were never an option. If I had to go pick them on the side of the road, they always made me happy. So anytime you come into my home, you'll always see fresh flowers. Also, you'll never see any fake plants. Everything is real. This tree, actually, her name is Dolly, because one of my friends, when I brought her in, it took 10 guys to bring her in. It's so massive. And one of my friends said, "Wow, she's really top heavy." And I said, "Yeah, let's name her Dolly." So that's why her name is Dolly. But yeah, I have fresh plants everywhere. They all have names. I do believe that they bring a living, vibrant energy into the space, whatever your space is in. It's funny, I was in Hawaii and I was staying in this rental home, and the guy had fake plants in there, and I was like, oh my God, this just feels so dead, you know? So if you're listening and you have artificial plants, I suggest that you maybe trade those out. Yes, it does take a little more care, but also they give a lot of oxygen and energy to your space as well. Now we'll head upstairs to the what used to be the choir loft and the choir room that's now my meditation room. Yeah, so the space up here, this was an old choir loft. It was actually, had all the levels when I bought it. I ended up taking it up, repurposing the wood and flattening it out. I used to have it as a living space. Now I just use it as a space where we can do different sound healing or breath work. Everyone brings a yoga mat. I use it as a larger yoga space when I have other people here. So again, it's just an extra space that I have in the house. And then we'll go over to my meditation room. I've been a meditator for 20 years, and I often like to find a space that I consider sacred, that not a lot of people are in. It doesn't have a lot of activity or a lot of disruption, and that's this space. It used to be the old choir loft where they hung the robes. You can see on the walls right over here where the little choir robes used to hang. So many people, so many contractors came into this space when I first bought the house, and everyone wanted to fix the walls. And I'm like, you're not going to touch the walls. I love that they have all the original aged finish. So I left it exactly as it is. And I put a really interesting, which I love, it's a little bit of an iridescent film, so that no matter what time during the day you're here, you see a different color reflected. It goes from pink, green, blue, yellow, all different colors. It's a really inexpensive film that I really suggest if you want to liven up a space and give it a little extra energy. So this, my assistants actually got it for me for Christmas. It's a copper meditation triangle. I don't know if you're supposed to ascend to the heavens or what, but I do actually sit in it, and it brings a lot of energy. This piece right here is an amazing old piece. It is from the 17th century. And it was a gift that was given to me by my ex-husband because he knew that I wanted something special in this room. And it's an old Tibetan piece from a gallery owner here in Dallas. And another fun thing about this room is I don't know what the official name is, but in Catholic churches, when they swing the kapal, you know, that the incense that you smell, it's actually kapal, and this is a kapal burner. And I just thought it was too cool. I was like, okay, I've got to get one of those for this. I've turned it into a flower pot. I have a little bit of church memorabilia in here. You can't get too much because then it starts looking more costumey than authentic. But every once in a while, you'll see a little wink back to the old religious, roots of the church. Yeah, so you'll notice in the church that I left some of the windows regular glass because I didn't realize until I got into the space that you can't see the outside world. Think about when you're in church. It's a totally enclosed space. And I love to see the sky and I love to see the trees outdoors and life happening outside. So I left some of the windows. I have the stained glass stored upstairs so that it can still be put back. But I did very selectively choose to leave some of the windows just glass, if you'll look up here, just so that I can still see the sky outside. One really fun thing about the church is that it was a working church, so there were so many different rooms. For example, we're not going to go in there, but my bedroom is the old marriage counseling office. And this room was actually the only room with no natural sunlight, and it was the church nursery. So knowing that it had no natural sunlight and what could I do in the space, I turned it into a sauna room. I turned it into almost like a nursery, right, where you could come back and rest and rejuvenate through the day. And when you shut the doors and turn all the lights out, I purposefully painted the walls this dark eggplant so that it really was truly a dark space. I have a massage table in here whenever people come to give me a massage. I have a sauna. I have a biomat. I have different sound healing tools in the room, but it truly is just a space for rejuvenation. I think one of the main things that I love telling entrepreneurs, there's a lot of myths out there. One of the myths is that everyone's out to get you and no one wants to help you. That's absolutely not my experience. My experience is people are rooting for you. They want to be a part of your success and they want to help you. So I think if you can understand that, my daughter's a young filmmaker and I just shared this with her. She's like, how am I going to get this done? I need this. And I said, just call people. People want to help you. And she called me later after her first film and she's like, oh my God, Mom, everybody wants to help. So I think that people don't think about that. There's all these stories out there. Another thing is you don't necessarily have to always have your own force that's going. There is something natural and innate. For example, when you have a child, there's something inside of you that keeps you getting up in the middle of the night to take care of them, to make sure they're fed. It's the same thing with your company. When you create something that's born of your heart and your passion, there's a natural impulse to want to take care of it and to make sure it survives in the world. So you will have these, if you have to push through too hard and override any natural tendencies within you and you think you can't make it, then you might want to reconsider if this is what you should be doing. Yes, there's going to be hard days, but there should be something coming out of you that you want to love and nurture and take care of this thing that you birthed into the world regardless of anything else. This space is what I guess most people call a mudroom. It blends the inside to going out to the outside patio. One fun thing, I just built a unit here to hang coats, to house different blankets for outside. I have a whole outdoor seating area with heaters. I love staying outside most of the year. And you're probably going to see that I have a lot of roller skates. And what's really fun is at one point I was dating a musician. And I was married to one too, so that's a thing. But, and he said, you have such a big living room. I don't know why you're not roller skating in here. And I thought it was absolutely the best idea I'd ever heard. So I bought a bunch of pair of roller skates one New Year's Eve, and I had a roller skating party. And now we roller skate quite a bit in the sanctuary. You can go back and see that it has a literal ring. And someone asked me once, like, what if it ruins the floors? I was like, oh my God, imagine if we lived our life worried about the floors being ruined. I was like, I'll get them refinished. You know, am I gonna not roller skate because I don't want my floors ruined? So anyway, I love that. What I love most about my home is that it's a play workspace and live space. You know, it's not one particular thing. I can roller skate in the living room. I can use it for meditating and having serious sound baths and spiritual gatherings. I can have in my home office creative brainstorms that are all professional business. So the space is really multi-use, multi-genre. And then I can have roller skating parties, you know, where my grandson and his little, you know, car going around the living room. This is one of the original pieces that was left in the church. I'm assuming it's an outside sign. Again, the spiritual person came in and said it was negative energy in the home. I didn't agree with them. I love history, and it looks like, you know, the neighborhood that this is in maybe was a little rougher neighborhood, and people maybe took a few shots at it. Which again, you know, it's kind of, what I love is it was never broken through. So for me, it's symbolic that we may get shots taken to us, not literal, but in the metaphorical sense, yet we are really strong and very impenetrable. You know, we're very resilient humans. It's a reminder of that. It feels way different from living in a regular home. One time I had an Uber driver pick me up, and he said, do you live there? And I said, yeah. And he said, imagine the prayers that have gone up and the blessings that have come down from living in that space. And I actually asked him if he would be my driver. He drove. I didn't like driving to work. It was a long distance, and I could work in the car. And he ended up being my driver for many years. But that is the truth. You know, you can feel the blessings that went on in this space. You can feel the happiness, the weddings, the births, you know, maybe even deaths, all these periods of transition. I happen to call it the Temple of Transformation because I do believe it's this place. I've had, I think, right now I have the 8th woman living here that has been in a transition in her life with me. They live in, you know, I give them part and give them up to 9 months to live here because sometimes we just need a little bit of a break from life. And it helped me in transition, it helps other people in transition. And when you think about a religious place and religious ceremonies, there's a lot of transition going on. You know, we're always moving from one place to another, and you can feel all that energy here. And of course, that has come with some visitors of the non-physical realm. I won't say the house is haunted, but I'd rather say it's blessed. But I do have 3 rules in the house. Because I had to first claim the space when I got in because there was some ruckus. And I said, number 1, you can't ever show yourself to me. Number 2, you can't scare me. And the third thing is that you must only be here if you're in the highest good of everyone that enters the space. So I had to really lay down some rules and say, and I've had a great time. You know, everyone that's ever been in the house only feels amazing positive energy, so those really worked. Okay, so now we'll go up to my home office. This is a painting my daughter and I did when she was like 12 years old. So I love things keeping things that mean a lot to me. This is my home office. It's about 2,000 square feet, which is quite large. Someone once told me when you're in a creative meeting that you should have a view that is really far, right? So that you can get the big ideas. I love that you can see the skyline of Dallas here. And one thing I particularly love about the space is this used to be the Sunday school class. Right? And I love the feeling of youth being here and having fun. Also, you'll notice the floors are at different heights, right? What I learned from the Historic Society is that this used to be a tent church. And the back part of the church was built first in 1910, or in 1890 this was started. And do you remember you saw the old balconies and then somebody would be down in the center. Well, that's what this space was. That's why these floors are at this level. So the windows are, equal to the floor. But I think it gives it a lot of character. When I came in, I raised the roof right here, or the ceiling, because I wanted a little more height. Again, I used things I found in the church. These are fans that were in the attic, and I had it turned into a conference table. Which is really fun. It all, again, thinking of a creative space, if they move, people can play around. I had several pieces of furniture made out of the old fire escape. It did not legally have to have a fire escape, and it did go through my master bedroom, so I didn't feel safe with it, so I had it removed, most of it removed, and I had it redone into different pieces of furniture. So not only do I have creative meetings here, but as I told you earlier, I'm a maker. I make things. And the way I created Poopouri is I made it, So I make a lot of our own fragrances, a lot of the products. So I sit here and I have many different types of oils and scents that I will just come up here and I'll start playing. These are all notes of different formulas that because you forget, right? You think you're gonna remember and then you don't. So I'll just come up here and start playing with different scents whenever I have an idea, or if I smell something out in the world, like, oh my God, I wanna make something that kind of smells like that, I'll come in and play. So for me, this is a play space. It's a workplace space. And sometimes I have friends, they'll come over and they feel really nervous, but I'll say, just pick out some scents that you like, and then I'll blend them up a little bottle of a essential oil blend that they love. And every time they love it, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm like, yeah, because it contains everything you loved, right? One of the things that really surprised me, and it always surprises me with every project, is everyone always tells you this is gonna take longer and cost more than you ever think possible. And you're like, yeah, whatever. It surprised me on how many years, the extent of going back and repairing 120 years of things not being done right and correctly, and being in integrity and realizing, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to rip all these wires out of this wall, completely redo the electrical, right? And not just patch it the way it had been done. So that was still, so every time it was so shocking. Every time they opened a wall, or every time we went into a project, every time I was shocked, like, what? Oh my gosh, which I don't know why, because we all know this, when you buy an older home, it's an act of love. And I do believe, I believe that we do need these historic homes, and I believe that it takes, you have to have a passion for it. You have to have a passion to want to rebuild it and rebuild it in integrity. This is one of the guest rooms that I like to call the Buddha room, because it has a couple of Buddhas in it. This is the only room that houses anything from my previous life. So this room is all furnished with things that were mine in my old home and old space. The Buddha, the table. This is a piece of art from Peru that I got down there many years ago. And it's halfway, it's a half basement. So what's amazing about the space, the scale, the size of it, it's very comfortable. But then also it's very grounding. So sometimes, if I'm feeling ungrounded, I'll come sleep down here, but it's a space that guests love to stay in. And I furnished it with different things. You'll see lots of wood. I love this light. It's an old tumbleweed that was turned upside down with a light fixture in it that I thought was super fun. This is the basement of the church, and what I love about it, it was the old rec center. I remember going to church, and then afterwards everybody would come down and you would eat meals usually. That's what this is. You can see even the old, what's it called, shuffleboard? With the little triangle, do you see the floor? So it's really fun. So you know that this truly was a rec center of the church. I've repurposed it with things. I built a kitchen down here that's really good for events, so that people don't have to be cooking in the main kitchen. If I'm having an event, they can cook down here. Also, if I have guests, because the downstairs is 5,000 square feet, they can stay down here, have their own kitchen where they feel like they're separate from the main space. I decorated it with, again, this is an old bowling lane, a table made out of an old bowling alley. And then these are original windows to the church that there were 160 windows on the back of the church that I had refurbished by a historic window company. And they still have all the original pulleys and everything in them, but they had to be updated. But I had 160 of these windows left. I didn't know what to do. And we came up with the idea to make them into different dividing screens. So when you have a large area, they sort of divide the space. And again, I didn't throw them away or get rid of them. They're still here. They're just in a different form. Also, my dream when I was young was to be a fashion designer. That wasn't on the Arkansas State University college things you could do or be in the world. So I didn't even really know that that was a career or something you could train for. I sewed my whole life. You'll keep hearing the theme, I'm a maker. I sold Barbie clothes since the time I was, big enough to hold a needle. I made my own clothes. I got my first job when I was 15 because I wanted to buy clothes. I didn't want to wear all the homemade clothes. Now, of course, all I want to do is make my clothes. It's funny how we go full circle back to what we actually wanted to do. So one of my friends was closing down her sewing factory, so I bought a bunch of machines. I've only gotten as far as making scarves for some of my friends and a couple pieces for myself. I forgot how much labor and how much time it takes, but I look forward to spending more time here. Another thing I did down here is I built a podcast room. Even though this was an old closet that I turned into a podcast room, even though I don't have a podcast right now, it has been something I've flirted with for a few years. I do think at some point I will do that, maybe in the very near future, you'll see. But I built that space specifically for this. So you can just see there's lots of spaces. This is a workout space that I utilize. I just left it open. Some of the little small rooms, the room, because it was a functioning working church, had a lot of office space. That's why it has so many bedrooms, right? They were offices. So this is one of the offices that I've decorated with a couple of twin beds. That way when I have events or a lot of guests staying, everyone can have their own private bed. Again, these aren't expensive decorating techniques. This is literally some rope with dried flowers that's gone down the wall. So people think that it is going to take a lot of money and cost a lot of money. It's not. The rug I bought off of Etsy, it's all about, having fun and being able to explore, right? I also love most everything in the house is either vintage, handmade, or sustainably made. There is less than 1% of the house that is bought at any mass retailer. So there's lots you can do by just going and repurposing furniture and buying it, going to local artists, go to your local outdoor markets. You wouldn't believe how much you could do that has a lot of style, character. You're helping supporting a local artist as well without having to, put more stuff in the world. One of my friends is a well-known Dallas artist, and one time when I was going through my divorce, I said, I just need to throw some paint. So I went into his space, and what I noticed is he had a floor and walls that it didn't matter that paint got all over it. So I took, again, one of these old offices, and I put down this felt flooring over the concrete. You'll see that I've painted many things here. I have friends over, we do paint. This is a room that's not going to get damaged by throwing paint. So I have it set up here because I had the space, and I just come down here, and this is one of the latest pieces I did, which I love. I just threw a bunch of really heavy, thick paint on it and just kept moving it. I actually would love a scarf made out of it. But again, you see the theme of the house is play, work, live, it's not so serious. So I love having a space. I even have some plates down here that people can break. So if I have someone right now or someone close to me that's going through a divorce, and I'm like, let's get some goggles and some hammers and let you break some plates. It's like sometimes we need some of these somatic releases in life that we rarely get. too much keeping it all together. Sometimes we just gotta let it loose. The word home to me is like a sacred space. I think of a womb, you know, it's this place where you can come back and recharge and rest and regroup before you go out into the world. I'm a Cancer in astrology, you know, that's, you know, the crab that likes her shell. So home to me is very important, it always has been. I love home because it's a place where not only am I rested, but where I can also bring friends and family in and give them a little refuge from life as well.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Jeanine.
I'm Bryan.
We are so excited to have you guys over and to show you our home in upstate New York. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi, welcome to our home. I'm Jeanine Hayes,
I'm
and
Bryan Mason.
we're from Afrochic. We lovingly call this our Afro farmhouse. It's a 100-year-old farmhouse in Wawarsing, New York. Before we were up here, we were living in Brooklyn, so it's definitely our farmhouse, but still like a little bit of a Brooklyn vibe that's happening in it. And just it feels Afro-chic.
Jeanine and I, we run a company called Afrochic. We've been around since 2007. We started out in San Francisco as a blog focusing on interior design and the intersection between design and African diaspora culture, looking at not only the presence of designers of color in the industry, but also of consumers and connoisseurs of color in the audience of the interior design industry. Since then, we've branched out in a number of different ways. We have a luxury product line of pillows, wallpaper, furnishings, lighting that we sell online. We have a magazine, it's called Afrochic Magazine, and we've written 2 books, the second of which recently came out. It's called Afrochic, celebrating the legacy of the Black family home.
So welcome. Right now you're in the foyer of the house, or the entryway. And we always want to make it, you know, just feel welcoming and also have some practical stuff happening. But this is kind of where the art collection starts, because I've been obsessed with different pieces for so long. We have some beautiful sculptural masks here. Also, I really love just collecting little art pieces, because sometimes like I can't afford a Kehinde Wiley, but I can afford Kehinde Wiley playing cards. So we have just tiny pieces of art as well.
But then the other favorite pieces we have here is the lighting. This is one of our lamps called the Amor table lamp that we hand produce in Morocco, and as part of our new heirlooms collection, because we're always interested in creating pieces that, instead of, you know, today we do things that are basically built to break, but instead we like to try and build things that will not only last you, but can be passed on to other generations, because that's an important part of preserving culture from one period to the next.
And now we're heading into the library.
And here in the library, so we have one of our favorite pieces is this nice big farmhouse table, which we cannot agree between the two of us what to call it, because for Jeanine, it's a dining room table. And for me, this is a library. So it's a reference table, because this is the place where I come, where when we're working on something where there's books everywhere and a laptop and papers and all that stuff, this is the table that lets me do all of that. At the same time, when we do have family over, especially in the holidays, this is where we all come and gather. So technically we're both right, but it's a piece that exists with 2 names here.
Yeah, and then always, you know, again, my husband's right. I love art, and especially a lot of figurative pieces in our collection. So these are 2 really gorgeous candles from Trudon that's been around, you know, since the 18th century. This woman was an enslaved woman in the United States, and the sculptor who sculpted this piece, it was for a global exhibition, and the piece was sculpted to actually have this her defiant look and the defiance to say, you know, slavery is wrong. And so they don't, she never was named. There's no information about her, but it just felt like it's something that we wanted to have in our space to really honor our ancestors. And we have a lot of moments like that. There's also a lot of feminine pieces in the house, and that's because my husband loves to, he actually asked, like, I want to have a lot of art with women in it. So it kind of just gave me permission to find a lot of really cool female art pieces.
So a lot of our pieces that we have on the walls in this room are actually housewarming gifts. So these two pieces that we have here that we love so much. This one's from our friend Tim Okamura, who is just one of our favorite artists. I mean, the work that he does is amazing. And so here, this is the Samurai Princess, and he's been doing this entire series, kind of fusing imagery of Black women with Japanese warrior culture and the samurai. You have this different assortment of tools that she has from different places. But the aesthetic is very real. And so Jeanine really wanted to have this on the wall, almost as sort of like a guardian figure, this protective, almost maternal spirit that having in the house. And so it's always great when we can see this. And over here we have another piece, also a gift from a friend and an artist that we work with, Faraz Mikue from the Canary Islands. And she does this amazing surrealist fine art photography. So just really love the color in this piece and the way that it interacts with the color of the rest of the room.
Yeah, it's called The Honesty of Bronze, and it's just, we're so excited when we got this piece and wanted to get it up right away. Because it is a library, and he's right, this is the reference table, but of course we wanted to showcase all of our books. A lot of the books that are in this library are actually pieces from African diaspora authors. And we wanted to really display the books like art pieces. Of course, you're going to see our babies up here, our Afrochic and Remix, which was our very first book. But then there's just pieces and books from friends, pieces from friends. We have this beautiful piece from one of our friends, Damian Davis, who does these very intriguing sculptures that speak to African diaspora culture. Andrea Pippin's another friend of ours. She made this really cool puzzle, and I really wanted to make sure that we had it for the house. And then lots of books. Bryant Terry's book, Black Food, another great friend who is a fantastic chef, and we wanted to have his work here too.
And then these two chairs that we have over here, which we're really happy. Number one, we love them because they are incredibly comfortable, but we love them even more because they're actually upholstered in one of our fabrics. This is our batik pattern, and typically we've done a lot of pillows and bedding in this fabric, but the opportunity to partner with Bernhardt to make these chairs was really a great opportunity, and we just love the look that it brings to the space.
Yeah, and Brian's right. Like, I love pink. Like, it just always finds a way into the house or into any of our, places that we've lived. But I really did want to play with masculine and feminine a lot in this space. I wanted it to feel like it was, us in terms of who we are, and make sure that the home really kind of embrace those different energies. So we did not get like a ton of pink in here, but I couldn't help myself to get, at least a few little items, sculptural pieces that have the color. And then in both of these rooms, the sort of dining part of the library and then the lounging part of the library, we have these really gorgeous Moroccan rugs. And again, this was an ode to African culture, also to female maker culture. A lot of the makers in Morocco who create these boucherie rugs are women. And so they're really abstract expressionist pieces. And we really are excited to have them here. And they also just kind of lift the space up and add the purple and the pinks and those hues that allow it to feel a little bit more fun in here.
Before we move on, I do just want to come back to this little pink piece just to say that to give the story and the memory that we picked this up on our first trip to Hudson, when we were actually working on a project in Hudson and looking around, not maybe about 45 minutes from here, thinking, this is a really nice place, but I don't think we would ever live here. And so being able to have this and keep that memory and kind of show how like you never know what life is going to do, and sometimes a lot of times it will know better than you do, is a great thing to have in this space.
Again, lots of like hand carved pieces, figurative pieces. So this chess set is handmade from soapstone in Kenya, and it's again one of our favorite. I just like love all the pieces and the intricacy of the carving. Neither of us play chess. I'm definitely hoping that next time family comes for the holidays, we actually can start learning a little bit and actually playing chess. So this is kind of like, it's a beautiful piece, but also we have goals with this one in terms of actually learning how to do it.
One day it won't be just for show.
This piece was actually a doll that my great grandmother brought back on her trip to the continent of Africa when she was in her late 70s. So in her 70s, my great grandmother had actually worked as a domestic, she worked as a maid for many families in Philadelphia, wasn't able to go to school. Her parents had been educators. She sent my grandmother and her two sisters to college, but had not been able to go to college herself. And so when she turned 70, she went and she got her college degree. And then she went on a trip to Africa with her sisters. And this was the first piece that I had ever received from the continent. And it's just always like when we move, anytime we've moved somewhere, I'll actually pack all of the art in suitcases and take it with us. I won't box that up because there are pieces that I know that I wouldn't ever want to get lost or misplaced somewhere. And this is definitely one of them. The book, Afrochic, Celebrating the Legacy of the Black Family Home, is a celebration of Black home ownership and of these stories of the journey home, is what we call it for African Americans since emancipation. So the book profiles 16 different homeowners from all over the country, actually one that's in a different part of the world, in Germany as well, and really tells these beautiful stories of 16 different families and what their journey has been making home in America. And a lot of our stories start with people some of them who had family members who were that they have the information about that they were enslaved. Some people who have property still that they one of the family owners actually the plantation that their family was enslaved on. Eventually, the family bought the property and they still own that land. So they're just absolutely incredible stories. We really look at them as ethnographies. And it's been nice to have our own home story presented in the book as well. And it really is about really talking about the past and connecting it to our present and our own home ownership journey.
Yeah, the book actually ties together a lot of different ideas. We wanted to cover a lot of ground. One of the most important things was to showcase the diversity of the Black experience. A lot of times, particularly when we're talking about the Black family home, we call it a missing character in the narrative of American history. It's something that it isn't often spoken of. It's not often covered in magazines or looked at in academic texts, and as a result, it's a gap in the way that we think of the American story. And within that, we tend to narrow our concept of what the Black experience can be. There's a celebrity experience, there's the experience of poverty, and then the in between is the assumption that if you're not in either of those two categories, that your house is normal, and normal would mean exactly like a white person's house is. And so looking at these 16 homes, one of the things we wanted to do was to really showcase just a taste of the breadth of that experience. So we do have people who have these incredibly stylish boutique apartments in Harlem. We also have people who live on 65-acre sprawling ranches in North Carolina. As Jeanine said, we even one person, the expatriate, originally from the Atlanta area, who moved to Germany and now works and lives abroad. Really understanding the idea of broadening the concept of representation beyond just sort of when and where people are seen, but also to how and why, and being able to give a fuller understanding of what that experience is and what it can be, what it has been, and some of the factors, social, economic, even political, that have gone into shaping this experience.
So now we're actually about to take you into the kitchen, which just got finished, actually. This is the most recent renovation that we've been working on here in the house. And for me, this was just like really special because I wanted the kitchen to feel like a room. I didn't want it just to feel like, you know, just like, oh, we're just coming to the kitchen. So I looked at a lot of kitchens that, like when we stayed in France, I've looked at, you know, kitchens in Spain, Italy, and how they're really just rooms and where life, you know, takes place. And cooking is a big part of our life. My husband loves to cook. He cooks all day in this house. So we really wanted to make sure that this was a warm space for gathering and for cooking. So we crafted this nook here, our Eden nook. And it's kind of funny because this table in Brooklyn was our dining table. And now it's just like a little side table that we have here. But again, you know, the integration of art as very important to us. So we have a lot of cool figurative pieces. I'm super in love with these salt and pepper shakers we have of these, you know, guys that, you know, just look like they're from the Brooklyn or Philly or any place that we've lived. We have some pillows here from Shine, which is from South Africa, a beautiful brand, and it was really nice to bring in some vibrancy into the kitchen as well. And then lots of heirlooms. This cabinet in particular is actually inherited from Brian's great-grandmother. And we use it as, it's a secretary that we use as a china cabinet here in the kitchen. I don't know if it would be seen as like actual china, but this was a Black Lives Matter mug that was designed by a New York artist. And it's just beautifully done in terms of the shape of the cup itself and then the messaging as well. So it's a lot of just tchotchkes, and there are things that I like, Brian likes, just vase and some figurative pieces that, but I do want to fill it up with more plates actually. And in particular, there's a plate project that features plates by artists, and I'd like to get some of those in here. And then over here, again, just, you know, loving art and figurative pieces in particular. This is by Barclay L. Hendricks. He was, you know, the before Kahindi, you know, there was Barclay L. Hendricks. So to have a print, this is from the Studio Museum in Harlem, of this absolute Philadelphia woman. Like every time we look at it, we're like, oh, that's home. You know, it just is another gorgeous piece. It's a print. And I like to bring prints in as well. It's a limited edition print. I always think a lot of folks think you need to be able to afford, you know, those big pieces of art. But if you can't yet, a wonderful print, something that's limited edition, also can have a lot of value in your collection. There were a lot of things we were trying to accomplish in this part of the kitchen. So, you know, this is all the functional part. You know, we've got our, you know, stainless steel appliances. Because my husband loves to cook, I wanted to, you know, make sure that we had a great double oven from Fisher and Paykel, which is fantastic, and we use it for holidays. We have some, you know, great fixtures and plumbing. Everything feels really architectural in this space. These pieces from Kohler are gorgeous, but then also kind of add to this story of a little bit city and a little bit country. So we did like this really nice undermount sink here that has floral aspects to it that kind of give that little bit of a farmhouse feel, but then glam it up with like brass. And then we did a lot of work with stone in this space. And I love stone. It's amazing what you can do with it, all the pattern that can happen in it. And that it's natural to bring into your home. Before we brought the stone in, it was all like blue Formica in here. So we were like, we've got to get rid of this. We designed this kitchen island. So we worked with Cambria to design this and develop that we would have these rounded edges and that it has this really nice 70s feel. We're both 70s babies, so I feel like there's always just a little bit of the 70s that comes in from us remembering that in childhood. And then we added a fluted detail here to the stone, which doesn't like catch you immediately, but it just adds to the architecture of this piece. And then again, added in lots of lighting. I love the light fixtures that we have in here. They remind me of sundials. And sundials have a lot of roots on the African continent. So it was just kind of this another piece that brings in culture into the space. This guy we actually got on a trip to Morocco for a friend's wedding. We purposely didn't pack like a lot of space in our luggage for bringing stuff home because we knew in Morocco you could go crazy and just like spend. And so I didn't even have anything like to put him in except a tote bag. After we bought him, I think on the last day we were there, I think we paid like $100, like nothing, basically for a piece that's this amazing. It's a Benin bronze. It is just absolutely stunning. It's really heavy.
It almost got us arrested.
Yes.
Because we were going through the airport. We had just left Casablanca. We were about to fly out from Marrakesh. And it went through the x-ray machine. And the TSA person there, completely deadpan, didn't miss a beat, asked, "Whose head do you have in the bag?" And we were like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "No, whose head is this? Is this someone you know? Is this someone you met?" He honestly, it took us a while to go, like, "No, it's a statue. It's a bust." He really thought had someone's head in the bag and was trying to sneak it through airport security. So we actually had to, It was at the bottom of this very tightly packed bag. We had to pull everything out to show him that this was a statue because I don't know if it was the face that had him convinced or...
We were ready to get to New York after that. But we were like, okay. Yeah. But fortunately...
It was a weird end to what was a really beautiful trip. We loved Morocco. We can't wait to go back. But it was a very interesting way to kind of like make an exit from the country.
But he was worth it. I think really it's the style. In a lot of ways, I think it's just us. I think that this house is definitely very much just a reflection of Jeanine and Bryan and the pieces that we've cultivated over the last 27 years of our life together. There's just so many moments that are represented in this home, like little art pieces, figurative statues I've been collecting since we lived in DC.
Yeah.
Some pieces that are our own, things that we've designed or created ourselves.
Things that are heirlooms.
Yep, things that are heirlooms that have been passed down. So it really is, when you walk into our home, you're really experiencing who we are. And that's honestly what I love. I feel like home should be. I think everyone's home should be like a hug. It should feel like them and represent them. And I think that our style really is about us.
I think as we were writing the book, one of the things that we decided to take on was the question of what actually is or how we would define African American interior design styles. And because it was a question, or even could there be such a thing? And we always found it to be a really interesting question because we know that we have, African American styles of food, of music, of dance, and we know that we have different types of design, European, Scandinavian, Japanese, so on. So, African-American design would just sort of be a natural outgrowth of those same things. And so as we kind of worked to understand, the best way to really to approach that, we started looking less at the individual pieces that go into a house or the typical ways that you would think about defining a style. Because as you'll see in the book, there's a vast diversity to what these homes will actually look like. And so we realized that it was actually the connection was more in the feel, in the vibe, in the emotions and the state, the conditions that the homes evoked. And so we started focusing things like visibility, celebration, even memory, that really started to define the aesthetics of these homes and the ways in which the people who designed these homes lived in them. And our home is very much within that vein.
And this is the living room, and you'll notice that it is super bright and sunny.
Yes.
We spend probably most of our time in this room, and it just feels good.
Yeah, no, I love this room. It's bright, it's airy. In a lot of ways, it's very different from the library, but still very connected. And with all the natural light that it gets, I mean, this is the room you want to be in. Especially,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if it's the middle of the summer or even on a cloudy day. This room is always full of light.
Yeah, we call it, the womb room. We have the pink sofas, and it just is like really cozy and healing. And definitely, it's an ode to the Black woman. So we have a lot of pieces in here. Again, some artwork by MMVCE. That's actually in both areas that are here in the living area, and then a ton of sculpture. So this over here is actually like my little sculpture garden. And we have artwork from Marjoni Merriweather, busts by Jessica Jean Baptiste. These are actually new pieces that are actually from the Afrochic art shop, which is a new shop we started to help others start collecting original art. Definitely, like in terms of the table, we wanted to have something that was huge because we always host holidays. So it was something that everybody could sit around. But I also, wanted to find that way of doing something a little bit country, but that still felt artistic. So to have this gigantic, teak table that shows the wood rings definitely feels like it connects with everything that's going on around us outside, but also has an urban feel to it.
Yeah. And so on the couches, it's funny, we make a lot of things. We make pillows and bedding and lighting and all of these different things, but we actually don't tend to fill our house with a lot of them. So the opportunity when we do that, it's always very special to us, and it's always something that we really enjoy.
I can definitely say that this gigantic big bubble chandelier is a fantastic piece, but also probably one of the scarier pieces that we brought into the house. I think actually I do remember the electrician saying he had to take a Xanax the night before coming to do this because he was having a lot of anxiety.
And I understood. He was terrified. I was terrified. We put it together. We had to get it up, and some of the bubbles you could fit in already. Some you had to fill in once it was already up, and it's up so high that it was a fun day for everybody.
It was scary, but it is perfect, and it's another thing that I actually love from the city. Definitely when we lived in Brooklyn, you'd go by so many houses and those big brownstones, and they had these gorgeous chandeliers. So it felt nice that we were like, yes, we finally have our gorgeous chandelier, in this house. So welcome to our main bedroom, which is all the way at the top of the house. And it's just like a really cozy suite.
Yeah. For whatever reason, the first time we walked through this house, I mean, we loved it from head to toe. We knew everything we wanted to do with it. But when we got all the way up to the attic, it was so spacious, so big. We went, well, why not put the master bedroom up here? That way we can almost have this kind of great, sort of main suite where you kind of get away from everything else in the rest of the house. Anything that's happening, if we're having family over, whatever, we can come all the way up here and just kind of relax. It becomes your own little sort of escape resort.
Yeah, it's definitely really minimalist. And we painted it in setting plaster from Farrow and Ball, which is just like that really nice, soothing, almost pink shade, which definitely feels very, enveloping. And then for the bed, this was different for us because I will definitely say that we are not like wood people in this way, but I would always think we've always had like an upholstered bed or something like that. But this really just kind of spoke to us. It felt like it fit in this room to have a lot of the hardwood and the bed with the hardwood as well. And then just again brought in those elements that kind of felt like nature, the lighting in the room that spans out and really has almost feels like a plant or a flower blooming. And then, floral pieces that are in the decor for the bed with our pillows, and this really beautiful handmade American quilt that was part of a special collection that they had at Pottery Barn. So it's just as, yeah, like, and it's a chill room. Again, we watch a lot of movies, so usually at night we're watching some sort of silly movie up here, and just enjoying the television and making it kind of feel like a hotel suite.
Yeah, this is the first pillow design that we created, and I still remember the day that I came home. We were living in San Francisco, and I had come home from being out. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Jeanine was telling me that she was looking for a pillow with an image of a black woman with an afro and silhouette, and it didn't exist. And we looked and we searched and we went down some very interesting and disturbing Google rabbit holes. And eventually we decided that since we couldn't find one, we would make it. And that was the beginning of the Afrochic product line. So this was our very first design. And it's nice at the end of the day to be able to come back to this.
Yeah.
Just come back to this idea of where it started and what we do it for.
And make this like a nice little nook again, for this room. Artwork, of a couple enjoying their country space. So we really thought that tied in really well with this area. And then we have our totems, our male and female totems that are here in the nook. And then just like for a little bit of playfulness, we wanted to do something that, was an acknowledgement that this is, also a romantic space and, our space. And so we have the little kiss shades that peek out over there just to be a little bit playful.
And then the last piece that we have over here, which is not quite an heirloom, but almost. This is actually a picture of me taking a picture of an exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum. And it was taken on a day when we were out with a very good friend of ours, Patrick Klein, who's actually the photographer for our most recent book, Afrochic, and for our first book, Remix. And being able to have this little kind of piece of him,
sadly he passed away.
Yes, he passed away
last year,
right around the time that the book was coming out. And just to be able to kind of have this sort of thing that brings back all the memories, all the times that we spent with him and all the fun that we had together and all of the things that we created is another way. It's a great way of being able to keep him close and keep an heirloom that's not in the kitchen.
Now we're going to take you into our wellness room. So come on down the stairs with us.
Welcome to our wellness room. We strongly believe, if at all possible, every home should have a space for wellness, for fitness, and then just for relaxation, for the place to kind of like unwind. For us, moving up here after COVID, physical therapy became a big part of our lives. It also became sort of like a gateway into just like new levels of fitness. So being able to have this space that we can focus on getting a little bit healthier every day, doing a little bit more every day, but then also it's a great space to come and do a little bit less.
So in the space, in terms of the design of it, we really wanted it to still feel, doesn't need to feel like a gym. We wanted it to definitely promote wellness and feel good. So we painted it in faded terracotta. This was part of Kelly Wursler's collaboration with Farrow and Ball, and it is just like the warmest, like most beautiful peachy color. And then we worked with Resource Furniture again in this room to design another custom shelving unit. So this room could work overtime and be a wellness area, but also be a guest room as well when people come and visit for the holidays.
Yeah, but as a wellness room, the shelving unit does everything that we needed to do. It gives us all of this great space for yoga mats, for all of the different things that we'll do, different floor exercises. We have our exercise bike, which is very simple and minimalist, but it gets the job done. And for me, one of my biggest pieces was
his favorite piece.
My favorite. I love I'm going to admit, I love my heavy bag. I'm not a boxer. or anything special like that, but just in terms of being able to like come in and sweat, 30 or 40 minutes a day, this thing is great.
Yeah.
And
thankfully the house is strong because he plays with this thing every day, and it's like, okay, I hope the house can take it, but it does. And then again, just, pieces that help just for relaxation. I love having a swing in here. I'll sit here and journal, or just look out the window. And I really love Shinrin Ryuku, which is the Japanese art of forest bathing. And so a lot of like taking in greenery. And you can do that nicely, even from here, if you can't be outside, to just see all the green around us. And like Bryan said, this room and promotion of wellness was like a really important part of our life. I have long COVID, and at the beginning of really getting, or middle, honestly, of long COVID, when we first got here, I got very sick. I lost the ability to walk, to talk. I couldn't eat for about a month. And so life was really, really hard, and I had to, and I'm still rebuilding. So we do physical therapy in here every day, but it feels like a nice place to come and do the physical therapy and work with our medical team. But we can do it in here, and it still feels good.
When the winter holidays come, which is usually when we do most of our hosting, there's always somebody who's here to click this little switch and see how an exercise room turns into a bedroom. Which we always think is pretty cool.
So this just becomes perfect when family comes to visit. They stay up here. It turns in, we'll of course put all the linens on the bed and make it really comfy and cozy for them. But it's nice because we don't have to have this bed out all the time. I think, again, being from the city, like just having a guest bedroom seems weird. Like you're like, everything you learn in the city, everything has to work overtime. And we wanted this room to work overtime too. And not just make it a guest bedroom that sits there and isn't really utilized. So also it can transform.
Also, we can say from personal experience, this bed is super comfortable.
So comfortable. Home is, just comfort, safety. It's the place where we can be most ourselves. This is our first house. It's been an interesting journey because we were city people, lived in cities. We've been together for 27 years. And so during all that time, we've always been in cities. And so kind of coming up to the country and just being in a space that's completely ours and we can do whatever we want with it has been a really fun experience.
Yeah, and it's been a new one, definitely, because we're both, as you said, very much city people. I'm from Philadelphia. Jeanine's from the country, kind of just outside of Philadelphia, but I've always been very much a city boy and never would have imagined living out in the country. But I really do love this place and the environment and where we are now because, Jeanine said, it really is, to me, what the home means is healing. We moved up here sort of like at the height of the early part of the pandemic in 2020. I had COVID. It did bad things to me. Jeanine got COVID. It did worse things to her. And so our situation kind of was quickly deteriorating living in the city. Just the what COVID did in terms of creating allergies and anaphylactic responses to just about everything. Where we were living, our apartment, the city, it just wasn't healthy for us anymore. And so being able to move out here and really have the space, and I think we all remember like during those days of lockdown, just thinking about, man, it would be nice if I at least just had a backyard I could go back out into. And at that point we were living in Brooklyn and all we had was a fire escape that didn't work. Like it wasn't even big enough for us to actually go out and sit on. So we were very jealous of the people we could see across the way who had a bigger fire escape they could actually sit out, have like little picnics on. And we thought just, it would be nice to have more room, more space to move around, but then also to be able to get outside. And since we've moved out here, things have gotten a lot better. Jeanine is doing much better. She's much stronger. I'm doing much better. And so this has really been that place for us to heal and then also kind of think and move on into the next stages of what we're doing.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.